Well, I'll tell you what, I will go through them, and then we can just, I'll pause. Right?
Yeah, the timber trust. We've, we've had them in several times, with Mike Caribou and whatnot, and, have a more of a discussion about timber trespass.
Okay.
And see if there's some way we can help make this easier for the AP's office or whoever to move upon it. Trip tickets to talk about. One faction likes them, one doesn't, but hearing more information on that.
Um, good, so what I'm gonna do actually is, I will go through quickly the list that's up here, and then we can add other things that aren't up there, so that would be one of them.
Should we just raise our hand, like if we're interested in it, or how do you want us to give feedback?
Yeah,
We
just
did
make a note, don't raise hands, but make a note, I guess. So, and then we can circle back on the ones that either we need further explanation on. H4 is the act relating to standards for the care of egg laying hens. We heard about a while ago. 14 was prohibiting the use of animals in product testing. 134 was one of the current use bills. And I'll come back to the current use bills, right? 229, establishing the security fund. This is the companion bill to the one to S60.
Yes.
273 is current use bill. So is 291. 326 is a short form bill regulating rodenticides. That was Representative Sakowicz came in. 343 is making state land available for farming to state recognized Indian tribes.
I don't think you can use that term, Chairman.
It's in the title.
Native American.
Yeah, Native American
Very
Indian
good.
tribes. That's what it says. Yeah. Just reading off the script here. 371, act relating to the use of dynamic pricing by retail establishments.
Well,
That was Will Greer's, yeah.
What was that, 371?
371, yeah. 372 is the application of neonic pesticides to nursery starts.
We forgot to catch up with.
Yeah. 386 is Representative Supernaut's bill establishing a land transfer assistance program. 408, an act related to state purchase of local food. It's also Representative Supernaut. 423, Representative Chena presented the other day, implementing the strategic plan, and there was funding essentially. It was essentially an additional funding for working lands. 424, we did not have a Representative Sheldon come in and introduce it, but we had a walkthrough from Mike O'Grady. That was on donating state managed forest land that's enrolled in current use. Maybe you were out.
No, I think I was.
Yeah, okay.
So it's managed forest land to the state, right?
It's the state that's currently, enrolled in either managed or not managed, donating it to the state.
It's adjacent to steroids.
With, as I recall.
It's very specific as to what land
Couldn't
has to
have
be
restrictions.
next to some right already.
Like, for instance, against.
They can't have any legal.
Right.
No restriction.
Yeah.
I was here for.
Okay.
Called when it's totally surrounded by state land. No, just as long as it butts up against. Right, there was a term for that too. What was that called? Adjacent. I think they little sort of like.
There's a term for that, yeah, where there's an island essentially.
Exactly, like
That's
the
not their
Worcester
term.
Range, yeah.
I see. 447 is a bill that I introduced. It needs more work before we take it up, so I'm gonna skip over that one.
Which one?
447.
You haven't done an intro on.
Well-
yet.
No.
Okay.
uh,
Uh, 475, this is the milk equitable pricing system, milk production that you introduced yesterday, John.
Yeah.
And then 477 is an act relating to forest management harvest on state forest land. So also we just heard about, yeah. 478 is price lookup stickers. So those PLUs on the banana.
Yeah.
bill.
That's important.
And then we have one Senate Bill S60, which we heard about earlier today. So let me just say about the current use bills. What I think I'd like to do is if there's a consensus that we want to prioritize these, any of these ideas, current use ideas, to work in some small groups on the different aspects of them. I already suggested to Greg that, for example, he and maybe you, Michelle, and I thought maybe Heather too, basically the 134 idea of trying to find places in the state where we want to prioritize housing, that part of it. I think we made a lot of progress on that, and what it would involve basically would be talking to the various constituencies, the 3 different agencies, for example, see whether we can get the housing, the ag, the natural resources folks all to be on board with something, as well as the Housing Conservation Board, as well as the Natural Resources Council, for example. I think we're close on something. So the equine piece of the bill,
Ted and I may work on that.
that would be good. Yep. So that's an approach I think would be useful on those bills because we've already done a lot of sort of basic background, but we need to now dig in a little bit. Those might not be the priorities of the committee. Those I don't want to say that we're going to do that unless we all feel like that's where the direction we want to go, since we've got lots of other things we could be doing too.
Hey, Chairman, for the committees who weren't privy, I forwarded a communique from a chief assessor for the state, Lister, Vickery. You may know him, been around early on in advocating for the policy of current use. And he sent me maybe a 1.5-page communique about some ideas and thoughts he had. He was interested in coming to the committee to introduce those on current use changes. I forwarded that to Chairman Durfee, and that hasn't gone anywhere, but he would be representing a segment that I communicated with Chairman Durfee that we haven't gotten testimony from listers, town clerks, or assessors, any input on how much work it takes, time involved, and also try to make that he had some ideas which I can't articulate now that I think the committee might gain a perspective from that perspective we haven't heard. So, I would just appreciate if the committee, or particularly Chairman Durfee, felt that may be worthwhile seeing. I guess none of these are coming off the wall this year.
No, I think that they have.
We can pass them to the Senate.
We can take them off the wall. We can take testimony. We can vote something. What we can't have guaranteed is that the Senate will take it up. But
But we
never have
also,
that guarantee.
we'd also discussed in the past not to do anything with it this time around, I think, didn't we? And then
We
work on
put
it
some
more
breaks on.
next session.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's an argument, I think, for waiting until January, just because a bill that is sitting on the wall, all summer long, maybe part of this spring, and into the summer, might not get as much attention as a bill that we pass, in January and send to the Senate. I don't know if that's a good argument or a strong
I
argument.
don't know yet.
We also could wait to pass it in January. If we start taking testimony now,
Yes.
just give us more background.
Yeah,
And if we
That's
did
less
it,
time pressure.
if we did it now and sent it to the Senate, they could just put it on the wall and it might get forgotten.
yes, I mean, that's, as I say, there's an argument there.
Well, Chairman Murphy could work with his Senate counterpart to, do you want some stuff down, from us this session, so you can maybe start working on it if they have slow time. I don't know what they have on their wall. On your 447, the rabies vax one.
Yeah.
I'd like to work on that if we have time this spring. There is interest in my wife's world to learn more about this, and she's been thinking about it. She was also with the town clerks last weekend, talking to them about it. And, you wouldn't believe how few number of dogs get registered in the town of Derby, as maybe compared to what we know live in the town of Derby. And this would be a way of giving them a cross-check list.
That's the intent, yeah. Exactly.
Oh,
Okay, good. Well, we can talk more about that.
Yeah.
Sean?
I would definitely, I mean, there's a lot of these that I would like to see prioritized, but the S60 that we just heard talked about, I don't really have a sense of how different that is from the 229, I think it is. That was the one we submitted on our side.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would like to hear fairly soon, maybe a walkthrough of 229 with more details. And unless there's something dramatically different, to me, if we like the idea of doing a farm security bill, we're halfway there.
Yeah.
It feels like it might make more sense to just go with the Senate version that's already passed. And we can even amend it a little bit and send it back to them instead of starting all over with a brand new bill. I mean, that would probably be my thought, but I think that farm security bill is it's a good idea. I don't know how easily we're gonna be able to fund it, but I think we need to do some kind of momentum going forward to try and get something like that in place.
So I asked Mike if he would put together side by side for the two bills.
Yeah.
And he said, he thought about it for a moment, said, sure. And his recollection was that they're very similar.
Yeah.
And we can, and I would encourage, the committee, if you have time over the weekend, if we do this, to look at the two bills. One difference, my recollection anyway, is that there is some relief offered in the House bill for loggers or the forest products industry, which is not in S60. So we can take S60, we can add to it and subtract from it. And maybe that's, something we would want to do. We should take some testimony on that. But I think maybe, Sidoni, if you can see what Mike's availability is next week, because you've already identified several things that we want to have him back to do.
Just like schedule a date. In
Yeah,
general.
just if you can just see if he has any time, like even on Tuesday.
For the new guy in the room,
Yeah.
Greg's not here. What's the floor gonna look like the next couple of weeks? I mean, we passed a lot of our big bills.
Good, yeah, it'll ease off a little bit. This year is different in one big way, which is the education.
Yes.
So that bill, the education committee is going to vote it out today, I believe, and it will then have to go to Ways and Means. And I think they're going to spend maybe a week with it. So I don't think that next week is going to be quite as hectic. We do have another way that this year is different. We have the bill that Human Services has been working on over the past week or so to come up with an emergency housing, a GA replacement.
Yeah.
That's going to be on the floor next week. I know those are two things that are different. So normally I would say, it gets to be, we go through a little bit of not a lull, but a quieter period. But
But other committees, unlike ours, may have 5 or 6 Senate bills.
I've been hearing yes, they may, but I've also been hearing other committees say, oh, we only got one bill from the
Really?
Senate. Yeah,
And could be more bills coming because they're still
yeah.
kicking them out.
But, crossover won't happen though, so.
If there's an appropriation, it may be just that it's still working its way through. Yeah, there's
So
still.
there's one that has to come.
Jen,
David, on the 229,
EPA, CLF.
in my mind, there was that forestry was on that bill and maybe taken off. But I'm not positive, but I'd like to go to some sources and see,
so you
so I
can,
recall someone mentioning that the Senate was working on something, there was discussion about including forestry,
Yeah.
what they were working on, but
so.
I'd like to get some input.
Yeah, I mean, so 229, you can look it up and see what it says, but we'll have Mike next week show
We
us,
could maybe ask him.
Yes.
I'm sure he counts.
and then we can amend S60 to include anything that is in 229 if we want to do that.
Just a couple other ones. I mean, I do like the idea of continuing to work on either 134 or 273 or whatever the current use with the housing
Mhm.
component in there. So however we can do that, if it's a subcommittee, I'm happy to work on that. But then also the ones that we had introduced really early on, the sort of hen quality of life bill and animal testing bills, I actually like both of those.
Mhm.
But I think the one that I felt the most sort of unanimity in terms of initial response was the rodenticide one that we had last week.
Mhm.
It feels like we definitely should work on that one because it just, I've actually started receiving email from my constituents about that one. So I like all 3 of those bills related to animals, but I think the rodenticide would be my priority for only doing one.
Are there other bills on the list that stood out for people that we haven't just mentioned, or that we did and you want to reinforce? Yeah.
Sorry, I have 2 other ones that I wrote. So one of them is John's neonic nursery starts bill. And the other one is the Heather's land transfer assistance bill. I think the land transfer assistance might be trickier because there's a financial component and we may just get killed. But I think the idea of it is good. And I like the idea of that. If she wants to go forward with it in a big way and other committee members are interested, I would be interested in that.
Okay. All right, well, so it sounds like, and Heather and Leland and I had our weekly agenda planning meeting earlier, and we had the same conversation just to see what, we thought. And I think it was the same bills that actually rose to the top. So the rodenticide bill, which is a short form bill. So if we want to proceed with that, we can take some testimony on it. If we want to actually have language drafted, we need to have a committee vote. That's Mike clarified that. S60 / XH229, and then the Heather's land transfer bill, I think maybe we'll take some testimony on too. And then in the meantime, we can also be working on the current use piece, and we can try and set aside some committee time, what would be committee time we can set aside for people to be having those conversations. It may also be offline.
Chairman, it now comes back to me, one suggestion that Tom Vickery made had to do with historically a 2-acre lot was set aside and taxed at a conventional homestead rate. And I think he suggested that be enlarged to, let's say, a 10-acre lot. But to be taxed at a regular rate, but could be used for housing without creating all.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's why he's the expert and I was just a conduit.
So it wouldn't be, be like taking my 10-acre lot that my house sits on, which because of the soil types, you can't do anything else with the rest of it. I would have, my homestead would still be my 2-acre lot house, and the rest of it is.
Well, I thought it was, the rest of it was that it could be used for transfer, like Heather was talking about, property, or Michelle was talking about, you could create another dwelling for the farmer, so you could have, without going through subdivision and paying penalties or transfer taxes, that you could, it would be a way to have additional housing.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just trying to interpret one communique I got. Interrogating a witness on that idea, all these questions.
I'll reach out to him.
Okay,
Yeah. Over the weekend.
because I just realized it was a streamlined way to allow for additional transfers.
Is there a-
Creating.
An association of listeners too, I know like the town clerks have,
I think there is, yeah, and I have
maybe VLCT is the in-house for, but maybe not, I don't know, I mean.
Yeah, I think there is, I'm quite sure there is. And
They might have a good representative.
there's a lister on the board, on the current advisory board, who is also on my contact to-do list. Okay, good. Then the other just thing to mention is that, or to have a conversation about, there, in addition to working on legislation, we can continue to have presentations like we just had from Ben and Jerry's, sort of mixed in. The one that comes right to mind is in 2 weeks, we've got some grad students from UVM who have been working on a project collectively or in small groups are coming in to present one morning. And the farm to plate folks, Ellen Kaler and her team have offered to put together presentations on topics that might be of interest to us. And they come in earlier and give us a big overview, and they've got some specific things that they're prepared to share if we'd like. And I suggest that we might want to do that at some point too.
And there's a new one that Ellen proposed to me yesterday. BTC is Vermont College at Randolph.
Yeah.
Is getting ready to gear up their agriculture program again. And they need 25 students to enroll, to make it viable. And it's maybe not so much legislative business, but it'd be great to hear from it and hear about it going forward. And then they're looking for support for maybe some scholarships for those students, which again, probably wouldn't come through the house, but from industry and whatnot. Yeah, I thought it was very
The
interesting.
guy who came in.
And then hopefully revitalize the 2+2,
Down the road, yeah.
which is still on the books, just not funded because there's been no 2 plus the 2. And hopefully we could get this up and going again. I think it'd be great for BTC it'd be great for the Tunbridge World's Fair.
They don't have a dairy herd. The other thing is similar to current use. I mean, some of these like there are 3 bills that are sort of FPR state bills that we might be able to, I don't know if it's
Combine them.
combine them or just have FPR in and have some wide ranging conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, and if there are other things that have come up that haven't yet made their way into a bill on the wall that committee wants to delve into, we can have
Like
those.
Heather Darby, I was thinking, following up on last year's neonic test she was doing, or finding
Yeah,
seeds that weren't treated versus, that were.
Yes.
Interesting to hear.
It would be interesting to hear. there's thought just left my brain.
Well, it is after 3 o'clock on Friday, so that might be why. Yeah. Does anybody have anything else before we break up?
So I'm just gonna add one sort of silly thing that I learned today. So in terms of that enteric thing, when I looked at it, I was like, oh, they're talking about cows farting. But I looked it up, it's not cows farting, it's cows burping. And I didn't want to ask that question because I was thinking about like, are you talking about flatulence? I'm like, I'm not gonna say that on YouTube.
What are you saying right now?
Oh, no, oh, well, at least it's not Ben and Jerry's watching me.
Well, you just said it.
But,
Here,
but anyway,
Is it methane?
yeah, but it's from burping.
It-
I always thought when you talked about cows and methane, I always assumed it was the other end, but anyway, just
So-
my random cow fact
Smarter
of the
than
day.
cow.
So just, apparently everybody else knew that already, but that was a new learning.
Well, maybe not, maybe not.
Okay.
so when cows are built to eat, being a prey species, their heads go down and they don't see as well. And they eat, and swallow quickly into the rumen.
Yeah,
And then they regurge.
yeah.
And of course, when they regurge to chew their cud, think of that rumen like a brewery vat. And it's just,
Bubbles
listen with a
coming out.
stethoscope,
Yeah.
you can hear it turning over and
Yeah,
bubbling.
yeah.
And the sheep do the same thing, just a smaller burp.
We cough up their cud and burp a
Just all
little.
these years, I did not know
And,
that. About methane from cows. I did not know that, so
Yeah.
I have a new understanding.
They show you're a lot younger than me, but I learned that about 3 years.
All right, well, you're ahead of me, Jen.
No, you're ahead of me.
Jed was 74 when he learned it.
All right, well, I'm only 58, so I'm still ahead of the game.
Okay, well, good.
All right, that's enough, so we can move on now. Thank you, I'm distracted.
All right, well, thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend. And we're back at 10 on the floor on Tuesday.